There are basically two systems of income generation in the world right now. In this video, we will first show you the system that everyone is trained in that is not very good at generating wealth, and we will explain why. We will also explore the system that does generate wealth. So let's have a look at the first system, the usury system. This is a system that's built on debt, built on usury. Usury is basically the idea that you can turn someone into an asset that you can then use to generate income from. So the way this works is that you lend them money and then charge interest on that money, and the longer you keep them in debt, the longer they are a resource of income for you. So you go to school and your training in this system starts at a very young age. Then you go to university, get in debt, buy a car, get in more debt, buy your house, get in even more debt, buy your gadgets, your toys, your holidays, and all of that goes on your credit card, even more debt. So now you are fully in the system of usury. Now you are an asset for the banks, and most people stay that way until they're 65 unless they change something. You have to understand that everything is set up by the banks for the banks. That is why you are programmed to be in debt, because it benefits the banks. Why do you think that banks are never allowed to fail in a recession? Why the government will take the tax money that people have paid in and give it to the banks to rescue them? We've seen this over and over in history. You see, there are only two groups of people in the system, borrowers and the lenders, and only one of them gets wealthy, and I will let you guess which one. So the whole system is designed to keep you in debt and the banks in profit. The correct term for this is indentured servitude, which is a way to get out of debt. Now, this was supposed to be a temporary measure for when you fell on hard times and needed to pay a debt to someone. You would go and work for them, pay off the borrowed money that you couldn't afford to pay back, and this was practiced in Israel a few thousand years ago. But it was supposed to be a safety net for people who had borrowed and couldn't pay back their debts, not a way of life. And in ancient Israel, after 7 years of debt, if the debt hadn't been repaid, it had to be cancelled. It had to be removed. So even within that, it wasn't a lifetime of indentured servitude. There was a time limit. So that's why I say this was a temporary system. You had a debt, you needed to pay it off, you couldn't afford to pay it off, so you'd go and work for that person, and you would exchange your labor as a payment for the debt. And that is the way the whole system works now. This was basically the course I was on until I was in my early 30s and I started changing my programming. I, like everyone else, had been programmed to work in the system. My mind had been trained to think like this, but something in me wasn't happy with it. And if you allow yourself to think about it, you'll realize that this is probably the cause of unhappiness in your life if you're stuck in the system. So that's the bad system. That's the way most people live their lives. But now let's have a look at another system, the entrepreneurial system. So I started my first business, an online business, 20 years ago, and I started flipping antiques online. Now, 20 years later, I have a fully residual income-based business. I don't have clients. I don't work for anyone. I have no debt. I own my own home. I own my own time. And if you own your own time, that means you're wealthy. That's a genuine definition of wealth. Because if you control your own time, you can do whatever you want with it. So what changed? I learned a different way of thinking. I learned to think like an entrepreneur. And that was something that was not taught in school or in university, because all of that is designed to keep you in the system. University is a training school for the system. So what did I learn? Well, I didn't learn this all straight away, but over the last 20 years, this knowledge grew and developed, and I'm still learning. And what I've learned so far, that is what I will share with you now. There are 3 principles that you need to follow if you want to create wealth in your life, that will generate wealth in your life. And here is a quick overview. Check out my video on the 3 rules of wealth for a full explanation. But you have your basic strategy, which is live simply, create assets, practice deferred gratification. Essentially what this strategy does is it enables you to maximize the profits from all of the income you receive, so you can reinvest it and build wealth with those profits, so that you can eventually buy your dream house, your dream life, without being indebted to the banks. You live as simply as you can short term, so that you can generate wealth long term. And here are some rules to help you achieve this. Rule number 1, don't borrow. Do not borrow and pay interest. Every bit of interest you pay is profit you are losing and handing over to someone else. Avoid borrowing at all costs. If you buy something with interest, you will pay 30% plus compared to if you had paid cash. Extend that out over your life, and that is 30% saved right there. You have to commit to not being an indentured servant. If you buy a house with debt because you have no other choice, then think of ways to minimize that cost. Maybe rent part of the house out. Think about this before you even buy your house. Think of how you will minimize the impact of the mortgage on your life. Live with family. Rent the smallest space you need. There are lots of ways to minimize the need for debt. Move to a different area where housing is cheaper and you can have a better standard of life. Rule number 2, don't buy new. Let someone take the depreciation hit. So for example, the moment you buy a car and drive it off the forecourt, it will lose 10 to 20% of its value straight away. Let someone else buy the car first. Let them use it for a bit, and then you buy it when the depreciation has already happened. You can easily save 50% on most things if you buy them cash and buy last generation goods. Extend that out over your life and those savings start to add up. Do the same for furniture, for gadgets. Even your clothes can be bought new, out of season, in the sales. You buy the clearance stock and you get that practically at cost price because the shops are trying to clear that out. Buy in bulk when you can. Look for ways to save money constantly, to outsmart the system. Rule number 3, don't try to buy status. You don't need the fanciest of everything in the world. Status is not wealth. Status is often fake wealth. When you see a new car driving down the road, do you see a rich man or do you see a man driving £30,000 worth of debt around? How about that big house in that expensive area? As we've already mentioned, if you want to save money, find a cheaper area to live in. Move out to cities. Once you are location independent, and that means you don't need to be in a fixed location to earn money, you can go to a different location and you can save 50 to 75% on the price of your house, depending on where you are now and where you move to. And cheaper areas don't always mean worse areas. We're not saying move inside the city. We're saying leave the city and go to a place where the property prices aren't so high. You don't need the big fancy house in the big fancy area. Don't seek status. Build wealth. Rule number 4, don't sell your time. This is the most fundamental rule. Stop selling your time to other people so that you can pay your debts off. Or even if you have no debt, it's still not efficient to sell your time to other people. Use your time to create assets. Why sell your time to one person when you can use your time to make something and sell it to thousands of people? Why spend your life being miserable building someone else's business when you can build your own business? Anyone could start an online business. Even if they have a very modest budget, you could start a business with the price of what it would cost to buy a big TV or a very cheap car. If someone is diligent and willing to reprogram everything in their mind that they have learned, they can find success. So right now, you might be selling 100% of your time to other people. And if you are entertaining yourself every evening for 3 or 4 hours, just 2 hours out of that time, if you've got that time, you can create a business. And when you're building an online business, the biggest resource you have is time, not money. You don't need a lot of money. Then you could work on getting 50% of your work time back. Once your business starts to make some money, cut your hours, maybe go part-time and do 20 hours a week. Now you've got 20 hours back you've gained for your business. Or if you're a husband and wife team, what you could do is one of you works, typically the husband, and the wife sets the business up and starts the business up. You might need to tighten some budgets, tighten some belts, but think about how you might get some time back. So if you got those 20 hours, you've now got 20 hours a week you have gained for your own business. And you keep doing that until you own 100% of your time. And this is the important thing to focus on. You're not focusing on how much money you need. You're focusing on how much time you have, how much of your own time that you control. So however you do it, whatever your situation is, try and find a way to get your time back. But the first thing you have to do is make that decision that you're going to do that. Now, I know this isn't easy. I've had to do it. We've had to really grind it out at times, tighten belts to get to where we are. So I understand it isn't easy. But it's harder to stay in the system until you're 65 than to make some sacrifices now, get control of your time and build that business. Rule number 5, don't make excuses. I post a lot of short videos and I get all sorts of excuses in the comments, but they typically boil down to 2 of them. One is, you smell and I don't like what you're saying. But the other ones I get is where people are expressing their presuppositions, their beliefs about money. And it typically comes under this heading or this idea. The rich people have all the money and they're keeping it to themselves. Well, you're going to have to get that out of your head. This is only true if you stay an indentured servant, if you stay in the system of usury. Wealthy people are separate from that system. They get wealthy because they train their mind to think like wealthy people. These are often just excuses that lazy people generate to blame someone else for their lack of ambition. And then other people hear that and accept that because they don't understand the real truth. But don't allow them excuses to be accepted into your mind, because they will stop you being successful. Rule number 6, reinvest your profits. Learn how to use your money to create assets. Now, I have a full video on budgeting your way to wealth, so check that out on my YouTube channel, where I go into this fully. But the basic idea, the basic premise is that you maximize your profits by reinvesting them into asset generating activities. And what this does, this leads into compounding your profits. Because if you can create a 10% growth rate in your profits every year and reinvest that 10% growth rate, it goes from 110% to 121% to 133% to 146%. And the longer this goes on, the more compounding starts working in your favor and the more your profits grow. And compounding is the magic that creates wealth. So go and check that video if you're interested in that, because I lay this out with a completely clear system that anyone can understand and use. Learning to budget for wealth is an essential skill. Now, how long will all this take? Well, the thing to understand is that it takes time to reprogram the mind. You have to get all that indentured servant junk out, and you have to put in an entrepreneurial mindset. And how long this takes depends on how teachable you are. This is the biggest factor. But if you are determined, you can escape the system, and many people typically do this in 2 to 5 years. I did this even though I had large debts hanging over my head, but I had to be humble. I had to realize I didn't know very much about entrepreneurship at all. By this time, I'd been an entrepreneur for about 12 or 13 years when the realization hit me that there were some things I just wasn't understanding. I was trying to be an entrepreneur and still stay in the system of usury, and it doesn't work. But now I'm mortgage free, I'm debt free, and I live in a large house down by the sea. I've got a happy life and I've got all my family around me. And it's all because I learned to start thinking like an entrepreneur. So I encourage you, make a decision today that you will reprogram your mind, that your days of being an indentured servant are over. That is the first step. And if you haven't already taken that step, then you can take that first step today just by making that simple decision. Now is the day to decide, not tomorrow. Don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Now, I hope you're finding this video useful. If you are, like and subscribe. If you want more of this, and drop a comment below and let me know what you think about it. And I encourage you to check out my very popular free marketing training course. I'll pop a link to that in the description below if you're thinking of starting your own business. If you would like to support the channel and also learn more about being an entrepreneur, then check out my Business Buddies community, which has over 58 hours of condensed premium training on all things entrepreneurial, and you can get 50% off the low monthly cost as a YouTube subscriber. Over 300,000 students from all over the world have already taken our courses, so we must be doing something right. Thanks for watching. I look forward to catching up with you in the next video.